My childhood sweetheart and the school beauty secretly tasted the forbidden fruit and were caught by the school. To protect the school beauty, he insisted I was his girlfriend. Because of that, I was suspended. The school beauty's eyes reddened. Now you're happy, aren't you? It's just a few days of suspension. Now the whole school thinks you two are real. So what am I supposed to be? In order to comfort her, my childhood sweetheart refused to let me go back to school. Be good. It's the critical time for review. If she sees you, she'll be upset. Anyway, you've got good grades. You can study at home. I didn't listen to him and still went back to school. He sneered, "You just want to see me that badly?" He didn't know I was there to handle my transfer paperwork. A month later, he called to question me about why I transferred. But on the other end came a sticky, teasing boy's voice, with a hint of mischief at the end of his tone. How can you do something like this without focusing? Answering someone else's call? Isn't having me enough? Be good. Hang up the phone. Chapter 1. After getting that thin transfer application form, I finally let out a breath of relief. The school leaders were unwilling and still tried to persuade me. Esther, it was the school's fault before. We wrongly accused you and suspended you without finding out the truth. The school apologizes. Could you reconsider transferring? I gently shook my head, but my attitude was firm. When I said goodbye to the teachers I liked one by one, my eyes couldn't help but turn red. One teacher softly wiped away my tears. Though I really hate to see you leave. With your grades, staying here would be a waste. As I reached the classroom door, I heard Casey's lazy laugh. Cute 4 hours to get this. Would the young lady honor me with a bite? Casey leaned casually against Lillian's desk. In his hand was a tiramisu, and with a small spoon he scooped out a piece, coaxing her to take it. It was hard to imagine that someone like Casey would actually have the patience to stand in line. Lillian still had a hint of forced sulk on her face, but the corners of her lips couldn't help lifting. Ha! The young lady finally willing to smile at me? Lillian snapped coquettishly. Who told you to call someone else your girlfriend? Of course I had to teach you a lesson. Let's see if you dare next time. Casey wore a playful, pleading smile. Wasn't I doing it for you? Esther is the top of the grade. At most, she'd only get suspended. But you're just an average student. If you got caught, you'd be expelled. With a spoiled look of satisfaction, Lillian cast a glance at me standing at the doorway and deliberately asked, "Then aren't you afraid Esther will get expelled?" Casey pressed his fingertip against Lillian's lips, eyes amused. Wouldn't that be perfect? Then you wouldn't have to see her and get upset. As long as the young lady stays mad, I won't let Esther come back to school. Now, can you forgive me? Lillian smacked his hand away and raised her chin. Then who's that standing at the door? Are you blind? Casey stiffened slightly. The moment he turned and saw me, his smile vanished. He strode toward me, yanking me out of the classroom, his expression irritated. Why did you come? Didn't I tell you to study at home? This is the critical time for review. What if you upset her? She finally calmed down. Now you've ruined all my effort. Maybe because I had completely given up. I didn't break down crying like before. I pulled my hand free, ready to enter the classroom to pack my things. Casey froze when he saw my reddened eyes. You miss me that much? He let out a helpless sigh. Fine. Just go home now. I'll come back early tonight and keep you company, okay? Casey hooked his index finger around my pinky and gave it a little shake. For a moment, I was dazed. Chapter 2. Casey and I were childhood sweethearts. Our parents had been classmates for many years, and after they started working, they even became neighbors. Their children were even born on the same day of the same year. Casey was a few minutes older than me. Since childhood, his parents always told him, "You must take good care of your little sister." On the first grab day when we were toddlers, Casey grabbed my hand and refused to let go. When we went to kindergarten, the first 3 words he learned to write were Esther. I grew up stuttering. When others laughed at me, Casey would beat them up. When I was 10, my mother passed away. I locked myself in my room, refusing to eat or drink. Casey couldn't get the door open, so he climbed in through the 3rd floor window. He hooked my pinky with his index finger and coaxed me for a whole day and night. I cried until I collapsed, asking over and over, "Will you leave me?" He held me tightly, his voice hoarse as he repeated, "I won't." When Casey failed his entrance exam for high school, I gave up the better-resourced experimental school to stay with him at No. 2 high school. I believed we would always be together. But after entering high school, Casey suddenly became like a different person. He thought I was too clingy, too annoying, and deliberately kept his distance from me at school. His eyes shifted away from me to the school beauty, Lillian, and he launched a grand pursuit of her. Half a month ago, he and Lillian were caught kissing in the grove. Someone secretly took photos, and they were posted on the campus wall. In the picture, Casey's tall figure completely enveloped the girl in his arms. Only messy, scattered long hair and a slender, fair neck could be seen. The dean, who routinely monitored the campus wall, saw the photo and flew into a rage, demanding to know who the girl was. But Casey wrapped his arm around me in front of everyone, kissed my forehead affectionately, and curved his lips in a provocative smile. "Do you even need to ask?" "Of course. It's my childhood sweetheart." I had imagined countless times the scene where Casey confessed to me, but I never imagined that, for the sake of another girl, he would push me out in front as a shield. "I won't leave you," that heartfelt, burning promise still echoed in my ears. But Casey was no longer the boy in my memory, the one who had been my shining light. Chapter 3. I pulled myself out of the memory and once again shook Casey's hand off. When he saw me packing up, his frown loosened, and he looked as if he understood. "If you needed some books, you could have just told me. Why bother coming all this way yourself?" "Do you even know what today is?" Casey paused, then stopped himself. "Forget it. Now Lillian's upset again. I'll have to coax her for a long time." I wasn't much of a talker, and I didn't tell Casey about my transfer. It didn't take long to pack. The books in senior year were heavy and numerous. My sore arms were about to give out. Casey naturally reached out to take them, striding out with ease. "Come on, I'll walk you home." He carried the entire backpack of books single-handedly without the slightest effort. Then he tossed me a dessert bag. "I also bought your favorite chestnut pastry. Make sure to eat it later." I hurried 2 steps to catch up, gripping the strap to try to take the bag back. Casey simply switched it to his other hand and used his free one to pinch the back of my neck. His voice tinged with a smile. "Don't fuss. With those skinny arms and legs of yours, you'd probably break something carrying this home." Lillian suddenly spoke up. "Casey." She bit her lip, looking pitiful. "My stomach hurts." Casey snapped his head around. In the next second, the backpack was shoved into my arms. The weight made me stumble, and my hips slammed into the corner of a desk. "Go grab a taxi home yourself." Without another glance at me, he ran toward Lillian. A dull pain spread from my hip. I struggled to lift the fallen backpack and limped toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Lillian's soft voice. "Your little childhood sweetheart seems to have gotten hurt. She looks so pitiful. Is it cramps? Did her period come? But she really did get hit just now. Don't move." Casey's tone carried some impatience, but not toward Lillian. "I'll go buy you a heating patch and some brown sugar water." As I walked into the hallway, the noise of people grew louder. Their voices faded gradually. The last thing that drifted into my ears was Lillian's coy tone. "You're so good to me." I tossed the chestnut pastry into the trash can and walked away. Chapter 4. After returning home, I received a call from the experimental middle school. "Esther, we've already prepared a brand new dormitory and daily necessities for you. All you need to do is come." The admissions teacher's voice carried a smile. "When are you planning to enroll? The new classmates can't wait to meet you." I thought for a moment. "Tomorrow, I guess." After I hung up, my dad knocked on the door and came in carrying a plate of fruit. That day, I had suddenly brought up the idea of transferring schools. I thought he would ask, "Why transfer when everything's fine?" But my dad just nodded. "Which school do you want to go to?" "I'll go ask about the procedures tomorrow." I wanted to tell him what had happened at school, but when the words reached my lips, I didn't know how to begin. I just kept shedding tears. "It's okay whether you tell me or not." His hand gently patted my back, just like when I was little, and he comforted me when I cried. "Dad knows you're not the kind of child who loses her temper for no reason. Transferring is fine. We'll change the environment and start over. You're my daughter. No matter what you want to do, Dad will be right there with you." I begged my dad to keep it a secret from Casey's parents. He was a little surprised, But he still agreed and prepared everything for me. This time, I can't sacrifice my own future again. Chapter 5. I started packing up the things Casey had given me. Birthday and holiday gift boxes were piled in the corner. Hundreds of little paper Esters he had folded to cheer me up when I was upset were scattered all over the floor. The bear taller than a person took up half the bed, stacked together with $1,000 dresses and the pair of gloves he had knitted by hand. There was also the Polaroid camera, and beside it, a thick stack of photos, every one of them taken because he had pulled me into the frame. 2 whole large cartons. By the time I taped the last box shut, I realized it had already turned to night. I struggled to carry the boxes downstairs. At the street corner stood the trash bins. Just as I raised my hand to throw them in, a burst of laughter drifted over on the wind. Casey was holding a beer can, his smile dazzling. Lillian was leaning affectionately against his arm, waving a sparkler in her hand. Someone shouted, "Lillian, make a wish!" Someone else was singing the birthday song, so it was Lillian's birthday today. The group chattered and laughed, and somehow the topic turned to transferring schools. I heard someone in our grade is transferring out. Maybe Esther? No way. Casey was lowering his head to smooth back Lillian's hair the wind had blown loose. At the words, he gave a little snort. She's way too clingy with me, there's no way she could leave me. True, she even obeys you enough to skip school. Casey, you really are ruthless. Not worried Esther's grades will drop? Casey's tone was casual but certain. It doesn't matter. She'll only ever go to the same university as me anyway. Better grades won't change that. Lillian stomped her foot. Casey, do you really have to bring her up on my birthday? Casey tapped her nose indulgently. Princess, how many times do I have to say it? She's just like my sister. Are you really jealous even of that? I threw away the trash and was about to head back when I saw Lillian playfully hit Casey's arm. And on her wrist, there it was. A familiar red string. I rushed forward. That's mine. Casey spun around, shock flashing in his eyes. Esther, what are you doing here? I couldn't be mistaken. That red string, set with a small silver bead engraved with Esther, was what my mom had prayed for on Temple Hill when she was gravely ill. She had given one to each of us, Casey and me. She said it would protect us both, keep us safe, that this string would be like her staying by our side. The cord had frayed at the edges. Casey had worn it for 5 years straight. But now, he had given my mom's keepsake to Lillian. How could he? Lillian shrank behind Casey, her voice timid. Why are you freaking out? You're scaring me. Smack. The crisp sound of a slap cracked through the night, my fingertips trembling afterward. Casey's face turned to the side. He froze, shock and anger flickering in his eyes. Lillian's eyes reddened instantly, and she yanked the red string off her wrist. Who cares about your stupid bracelet? She flung it toward the river under the bridge. Take it back then. Casey treats you so well. And you hit him? Casey instinctively grabbed Lillian's wrist, his face darkening. Who told you to throw it? I watched as the red string vanished among the rocks by the riverbank. Without hesitation, I climbed over the bridge railing. Esther! Casey! 2 panicked voices rang out at once. Lillian clung tightly to Casey. Don't go after her. She's doing it on purpose. Did you forget she just slapped you? She doesn't care how you feel. Casey's hand froze midair. His eyes churned with struggle, anger, worry, and a sting of humiliation. This bridge isn't even that high. The water's shallow. She's just trying to scare you. There's blood at the corner of your mouth. Let's just go to the hospital. After a long pause, Casey's voice came out cold as ice. Let's go. The river water rose to my knees, bone-chilling cold wrapping around me. This was the bridge we crossed every day to and from school. I suddenly remembered. Back then Casey would always hold my hand tight in the middle of the bridge, not letting me near the railing. Stay back. What if you fall? I'm scared. I would tease and edge closer to the railing. What if you fall? He would grip my hand harder. If I fall, it's fine, but you can't. The bridge that once seemed impossibly high, now was only a small leap down. At last, I found the red string wedged in a crack between the stones. On the way home, I suddenly understood. The bridge hadn't gotten shorter. It was just that the person who once feared I might fall no longer cared if I got hurt. But it's okay. I won't need his company anymore. Chapter 6. The teachers at the experimental middle school were so enthusiastic that it was almost overwhelming. The moment we met, my backpack was whisked off my shoulders and a neatly wrapped breakfast was shoved into my hands. Finally, we've managed to get you here. You can pick any seat you like. We've prepared all the study materials, and the new school uniform has already been washed and placed in your desk drawer. Our class has a really great atmosphere. If you ever feel out of place, come find me anytime. My office is at the end of the hallway. The door is always open for you. The enrollment procedures were processed so quickly it left me dazed. Before I even stepped into the administration office, everything was already taken care of. Staring blankly at the smiling homeroom teacher, I finally understood what they had meant on the phone about being unable to wait. Before we even reached the office, a clear youthful voice drifted out, laced with playful pleading. "Teacher, please approve my transfer request. I really want to go to second high school. For the sake of our 2 years, 6 days, 3 hours, and 1 minute of teacher-student bond. Please say yes." A helpless sigh from the teacher slipped in between. "It's not that I don't want to," the boy anxiously interrupted. "Esther is my lifelong rival. I have to transfer to challenge her. Otherwise, I can't eat. I can't sleep." I was full of question marks. The homeroom teacher pushed open the door and patted the boy on the shoulder. "You don't need to transfer anymore, because your rival is here." The boy froze, then spun around sharply. I instinctively lifted my gaze and met a pair of striking, peach blossom eyes. The sleeves of his school uniform were rolled up to his elbows, his collar slightly undone, revealing sharp, beautiful collarbones. The most ordinary blue and white uniform looked dazzling on him. "Esther?" His eyes shone brilliantly, words tumbling out like a wind-up toy. "My name's Zach. From Class A. I've long heard your name. I've been competing since elementary school. Held the #1 spot for 7 straight years. And then your very first competition, you beat me by 15 points flat." From then on, I was restless, sleepless, obsessed with transferring to second high just to challenge you. But the teacher never agreed. "Now you've come, I don't need to transfer. From today on, we're study partners." Perfect timing. I just found a set of precious exam problems. They're fascinating. I've already come up with 5 different solutions. As he spoke, Zach pulled out a test paper like a magician. "From now on, after evening study, the back row by the window is mine. You'll sit beside me. Let's start right now." I looked down at the papers in his hands, then back up into those glittering eyes. My head buzzed. This guy really is so noisy. Chapter 7. I adapted quickly to life at the new school. It's just, my deskmate's presence was a little too overwhelming. During evening self-study, I was working through problems. Zach twirled his pen and tried to talk to me. "Esther, look at this physics question." The sound of my name made my pen stall mid-stroke. Zach instantly hushed himself, holding a finger to his lips. His eyes bright. "Go on. I'll wait for you." Don't call me that." Zach blinked. "Did someone else call you that before?" I glanced at the question his pen tip pointed to, deliberately changing the subject. "Use the law of momentum." "Oh, right." Zach clapped the air and began muttering his solution aloud. I opened my mouth, wanting to tell him to keep some distance. Seeing me hesitate, he quickly waved his hand. "What do you want to say? Take your time, I won't cut you off." I wanted to say "you're kind of loud," but faced with his sparkling eyes, I couldn't bring myself to. I just shook my head. Zach started rambling again. "Your handwriting's beautiful. You're pretty too. And smart. I really envy you." "Oh, I brought 2 oranges. They're super sweet. Want to try one?" I wanted to wave him off. I barely got out a no before he had already peeled one and shoved it into my hand. "Here, take it. You worked hard on that problem. Have some energy." From behind us, Susie suddenly poked her head forward. "I want one too." Zach peeled a slice and handed it over. She smirked. "Putting girls before friends. Huh?" Zach shook his head with mock solemnity. "Putting my rival before my friends." Susie pulled out a pair of earplugs from her pocket and stuffed them into my hand. "Esther, don't let him scare you away. Oh, and let me tell you, the food at window number 2 in the cafeteria is amazing. I'll take you tomorrow." I was overwhelmed. These new classmates were so enthusiastic. The rustling at our table caught the teacher's attention. "Zach, can you shut that mouth of yours?" Zach went quiet. 2 seconds later, a paper ball rolled onto my desk. On it, scrawled in dramatic handwriting, was the orange sweet. I was speechless. Seeing me about to protest, he quickly scribbled another line. I hurriedly nodded. His eyes lit up even more, like a kid who had just gotten candy. And suddenly, I thought, having someone talking nonstop beside me maybe wasn't so bad after all. Chapter 8. The monthly exam ended. And as expected, I ranked first again. Zach beat his chest and stomped his feet, swearing that next time he'd definitely surpass me. Seeing the little curls on his forehead droop, I couldn't help the corners of my lips from lifting, but I met his glittering eyes instead. "Your smile is so beautiful. If it means I'll always be second place, I guess that's fine too." My face heated up, and I fled to the office to fetch the answer sheets. The homeroom teacher looked delighted to see me. "Esther, the school is holding a pep rally, and they want you to give the student speech. Normally Zach does it. Would you like to this time?" The podium, the spotlight shining down, and a sea of dark heads in the audience. Just imagining it made my palms break out in sweat. I was about to shake my head and refuse. "I heard they're asking you to be the student speaker? That's amazing, Esther." Zach rubbed my head with a grin. I can't. I'll stutter." He instantly stopped smiling. "So what if you stutter? That time you explained a problem to me, you spoke a little slowly, but every word was clear. Being able to hear you speak is their honor." My cheeks burned red at his words. Back in my first year of middle school, a teacher once called on me to share my study tips. I had just opened my mouth, everyone, and before I could even finish, people in the audience laughed. Casey had been my deskmate then. He suddenly slammed his pen down and yelled at them, "What's so funny?" I had actually wanted to try hard to finish my speech, but Casey dragged me off the podium, looking a little impatient. "If you can't say it clearly, then don't. They wouldn't understand anyway." Later, he cornered and beat up the ones who laughed at me, but I never dared to speak in public again, and my popularity suffered for it. Zach, though, had no intention of mocking me. "How about we borrow an empty classroom to practice first? I'll be the audience. Take your time. Stop if you get stuck. I'll clap for you." Looking into those sparkling eyes, courage suddenly welled up inside me, and I nodded firmly. The homeroom teacher smacked Zach on the head, looking stern. "Don't you dare skip class." Chapter 9. I finished writing my speech draft during evening self-study. After school, Zach took the paper from my hands. With a red pen, he drew little triangles between sentences. "You can pause to breathe here." Added gesture there. I was so nervous during my first speech. I almost dropped the microphone, but in the end, I forced myself through it. "You're way better than me, you'll do just fine." Under his expectant gaze, I took a deep breath. Respected TE teachers, I practiced for a long time, but still couldn't help stammering. Zach seemed to notice my discouragement. "Do you know, when I was little, I talked so much the teacher made me stand as punishment. My classmates all avoided me, said I was like a buzzing fly." His eyes curved as he smiled. "One time, I cried to my mom, saying no one wanted to listen to me, so I'd never speak again. But she bought me a recorder instead, told me to record everything I wanted to say. She said, 'Liking to talk isn't a flaw. There will always be someone who loves to hear you.' See me now? Still chattering away, right?" Zach paused, his tone lifting softly at the end. "You're the same. There'll always be someone who wants to hear you speak, like me. So don't worry, there's still plenty of time before the rally. I'll practice with you." It felt like something softly knocked against my heart. Skipping a beat, the night breeze rose, carrying the faint citrus scent from him, brushing past my nose. My fingers slowly loosened their grip on my clothes. "Zach, thank you." Chapter 10. The pep rally went very smoothly. After a week of practice, my pace was still slow, but at least I didn't stutter. I wanted to buy Zach a gift, but I didn't know what he liked. When I asked Susie, she gave me a mysterious smile. Him? He loves studying the most. So I gave Zach the newest set of key provincial mock exam papers. He happily accepted them. Then he immediately flipped open the first page and began scribbling calculations at full speed. Oh, right. Zach suddenly stopped writing. This weekend, there's a new cafe near school with window seats and great sunlight. Let's go do problems together there. His rapid-fire delivery startled me into a daze. He quickly added, just studying, nothing else. I'll treat you to coffee. Just think of it as a thank you gift. Okay? Oh, okay. The weekend sunlight was indeed bright and warm, but I found myself distracted. My gaze drifting toward him again and again. Zach was leaning over his paper, working on a big physics problem, his pen gliding across the page. Suddenly, he looked up at me with a smile. You marked the electric field direction wrong on this one. He reached across, his fingertip tapping lightly on my draft paper. It was so close to my hand. I could almost feel the warmth of his skin through the air. I jerked my hand back, nearly dropping my pen. Esther? He tilted his head at me, confusion flickering in his eyes. Your face looks a little red. Is the air conditioning too strong? Just then, my phone rang. I didn't check the caller ID, clutching at it like a lifeline. I answered. Hello? Silence filled the receiver, puzzled. I was about to check who it was when Casey's voice came through. Esther, when did you transfer schools? You didn't even tell me. His tone carried a slight laugh, casual and careless, as if I had never transferred, as if none of it had ever happened. Why aren't you saying anything? Don't mess around. Come back. It's been so long since I saw you. I really miss you. The lightness in his voice was like a thin needle, pricking me gently. Those days of being scrutinized and whispered about. That night, clutching the red string on the riverbank, shivering. It all seemed erased by his offhand words. Zach's hand, which had been twirling his pen, froze. Casey's voice, he must have heard it. Zach tilted his head, suddenly leaning close. His voice wasn't too loud or too soft, just enough for the caller to hear, laced with affectionate complaint. Sticky and intimate. How can you not focus? Picking up someone else's call like this? Isn't having me enough? Be good. Hang up. Casey's voice turned instantly cold, the laughter vanishing without a trace. Esther, who's beside you? What are you doing right now? Where are you? I'll come find you. Zach blinked at me with those glittering eyes, his expression innocent, as if to say I didn't do anything. I gripped my phone tightly and said, word by word, it has nothing to do with you, and I'm not transferring back. With that, I hung up and blocked him. Chapter 11. Zach had a thoughtful expression. I get it, he's your ex-boyfriend, right? I was just about to deny it when he nodded to himself. Makes sense. For someone as outstanding as you, having a few ex-boyfriends is totally normal. But that guy sounds like he's still pestering you, so, do you need me to pretend to be your boyfriend? I said. Huh? Zach winked at me. I promise I'll shut him down, one comes. I'll shut down one. And after shutting him down, I can even beat him up. I'm good with both brain and brawn. Back in the day, I was the most notorious school boss around here. The joking tone carried a thread of seriousness and expectation. I curved my lips. Not an ex-boyfriend, just a classmate. Zach raised his eyebrows, his fingertip tapping a steady rhythm on the desk. First, he called you Esther, but when I called you Esther before, you wouldn't let me. Second, the moment he heard my voice, his tone instantly turned cold, clearly possessive. Third, when you answered the call, your expression wasn't good. High chance you two had a fight before. Is that why you transferred schools? Zach paused, then suddenly leaned in closer. Even if he's not an ex, he must be someone really important to you, right? I was speechless. After a moment, I said softly, he's Casey, my childhood sweetheart. He used to be important, but not anymore. Not now. Not in the future. Then I can relax. Zach coughed lightly. Ahem. What I mean is, he'll definitely come looking for you. I shook my head. Casey was the type who cared most about saving face. After the way I hung up and blocked him, there was no way he'd come find me again. That call he made was probably for Lillian's sake anyway. Zach clearly didn't agree, but he didn't push it further. He only muttered, either way, I'll keep an eye out. Senior year was heavy with study tasks, and gradually, I put the matter behind me until another weekend arrived. I had just stepped out the school gates with my backpack when I saw that familiar figure. Casey was leaning under a plane tree not far away, wearing second high's uniform. His hands were stuffed into his pockets, his gaze fixed squarely on the school gate. Sunlight fell on him, outlining a stubborn chill. His eyes shifted to Zach at my side, and he spoke, voice heavy. Esther. Who is he? Chapter 12. I hadn't expected Casey to come looking for me. I tried to step past him, but he blocked my way directly, reaching out like always to grab my hand. Zach smoothly intercepted him with a cheerful smile. Hello there. I'm Esther's desk mate. You must be the one from the phone call, right? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Casey frowned. What gives you the right to call her Esther? Zach's smile didn't fade, but his words were sharp. Then what gives you the right to call her Esther? Casey's expression darkened. He turned to me instead. What were you two doing that day? Zach casually stepped in front of me, blocking Casey's cold gaze. We're together every day. Which day are you talking about? Oh, I remember. You mean that day? We were doing practice problems together. By the look on your face, Esther must have never studied with you before. Huh? That day, we worked through a full set of physics competition mock problems and even discussed several hard ones. Esther's problem-solving method was so clear, even better than the standard answers. Casey's frown deepened, opening his mouth a few times, only to be cut off by Zach each time. Speaking of which, those problems were really tough. The last electromagnetism one had me stuck for 20 minutes, until Esther reminded me to switch formulas. You should have seen how serious she was while explaining. Oh. And we ordered coffee too. The latte art was really fun. They even blended our initials into the foam. Though in the end, I stirred mine into a mess. Will you just shut the fuck up? Casey finally exploded, fury spilling from his voice. Zach still wore that easy smile. Why so worked up? Weren't you the one who asked what we were doing? A vein bulged at Casey's temple. I'm talking to her. What does this have to do with you? I'm her desk mate, Zach replied, smiling innocently, as though oblivious to the hostility. Unlike some people who keep pestering after being blocked, how embarrassing is that? Casey turned to me, putting on a look of hurt. Esther, he's really noisy. I really miss you. Tell him to go away. I want to talk to you alone. He seemed so certain I was still the old Esther, that all it would take was lowering his head a little, and forgiveness would follow. Students around us began to slow down, stopping to watch the scene unfold. I didn't want to become the focus of gossip. Looking calmly at Casey, I said, I don't want to talk to you. Leave. Casey froze, his face paling in disbelief. Zach flashed me a thumbs up and whispered, You're so cool. Chapter 13. On the way to the cafe with Zach, someone kept following behind us, like a shadow I couldn't shake. When we sat down by the window, Casey sat at the next table, dragging it closer until his elbow nearly touched the edge of ours. As I explained a problem to Zach, Casey leaned over, his voice deliberately softened, almost ingratiating. What problem are you working on? I want to listen too. Zach's pen paused. He turned and gave Casey an innocent smile. First of all, let me state clearly, I mean absolutely no offense to you. No discrimination. No suggestion about your IQ whatsoever, but you really wouldn't understand. Casey's grades were decent, but among the top students at the experimental middle school, he just couldn't compare. He tugged at the corner of his mouth, saying nothing, his gaze still fixed tightly on me, impossible to ignore. Anyone would struggle to focus with a human surveillance camera sitting right there. Minute by minute ticked by. Distracted, I managed to finish only 2 questions. Casey hadn't moved, still staring at me with that same expression. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. I set my pen down and met his gaze head-on. What exactly do you want? A flicker of light passed through Casey's eyes, his tone cautious. I just want to say a few words to you. Just a few. Every part of me resisted, but letting things drag out like this wasn't a solution. Precious study time couldn't be wasted. Zach seemed to sense my hesitation and stood up at just the right moment. I'll go buy some coffee. The instant he left, Casey pulled out a brand new red string, with a small silver bead engraved with Esther. His fingertips had gone pale from gripping it too tightly. In a low voice, he said, "That night I went to the riverbank. I couldn't find the one your mom gave me, so I went back to Temple Hill and prayed for another. This time, I'll take good care of it. Esther." I know I was wrong. The memory of my mom slipping those red strings onto our wrists was still vivid, and Casey thought, what? That any random red string could earn my forgiveness? Don't call me Esther. You don't deserve it. My voice trembled as I snatched the string and threw it to the ground. Casey's hand froze in midair. His expression turned desperate as he grabbed my hand, pressing it against his own face. I was a bastard. Don't be mad. You can hit me, okay? Just hit me. I yanked my hand free and wiped my fingertips with alcohol. You've said what you needed to, and now leave. Chapter 14. Casey didn't give up. He suddenly stopped going to his own classes, finding ways to sneak into the experimental middle school. Sometimes during morning exercises, he would suddenly appear at the edge of the playground, staring at me from afar. Zach would deliberately block my view, engaging me in a discussion about problem-solving methods. Sometimes at lunchtime, Casey would wait outside our classroom door, holding the chestnut pastries I used to love. Zach would pull oranges out of his backpack with a bright smile. We already brought snacks. No need to trouble yourself. Gradually, rumors began spreading in school. Look, that's the guy. He comes every day to see the top student. I heard he's from second high and got caught dating by the school. What? How could Esther be involved with someone like that? Don't tell me she's dating him? Even the teacher gently reminded me to talk to Casey, not to disturb other students' studies. Otherwise, she said, she would simply call security. I was deeply irritated. Another weekend after school, when Casey was waiting under the plane tree again, I rushed up to him. Do you know how annoying this is? You're disrupting my life. When I finished, I startled myself. I hadn't stuttered at all. Casey's face went pale. I just wanted to. Don't think about anything. I cut him off. I don't want to see you again. I don't want to hear anything about you. Can you please disappear from my life completely? I just wanted to explain. Casey's tone carried a trace of obsession, about the red string, and about you being suspended. I wanted to say I'm sorry. After you left, I realized the one I truly liked was you all along. I know saying this now is ridiculous, but He drew a deep breath, his eyes gradually reddening. My parents always told me since I was little, I'm the older brother. I have to protect Esther. The neighbors would joke whenever they saw us. Friends would always ask where you were whenever they saw me alone. At the time, I found it suffocating. Why did my life have to include you? Why did everyone think I was supposed to treat you well? So I deliberately got close to other people, just to prove I wasn't tied to you. But after you left, I realized, Casey, I gently interrupted him. The truth is, I also hated when people teased us. Those crude jokes from the neighbors, those classmates who jeered and stirred things up. Casey found it annoying. Did he think I liked it? But I never once thought of hurting you. I would repeat over and over to them not to say such things. Even if they ignored me, I would quietly take another route just to avoid them. Casey froze. His lips moved, but no words came out. The sycamore leaves rustled overhead. I looked at the redness at the corners of his eyes and said softly, Casey, don't hurt me anymore. My life right now is good. I have a dream university. I have someone I want to walk alongside. I don't want to go back to the past. I have my own life now, a future without you. Chapter 15. Casey never showed up again. Senior year passed by as if someone had pressed the fast-forward key. Though it was tough, the moment the college entrance exam ended, I still felt a strange sense of reluctance. As expected, Zach and I both got into the top university. On the day I received the admission letter, I unexpectedly got a call from Lillian. She apologized, saying she hadn't known the red string was my mother's keepsake, and thought it was just an ordinary gift I had given Casey. She also said that both she and Casey had done poorly on the exam. She stayed at the same school, while Casey went to a neighboring city to repeat the year. I said nothing, simply hung up the call. Zach held onto his admission letter, the tips of his ears unusually tinged red. He lingered outside the cafe for a long time before cautiously pushing the door open. On a sweltering 37-degree day, He was dressed in a pure black suit, looking nothing like his usual self in school uniform. I looked at him curiously. What are you? Wait. Zach took a deep breath. This time, let me speak first. They say the university library is brutal. If you want a seat, you need to get there by 7 in the morning. The classes are harder. The schedule is packed. And top students from all over will be there. The competition's even tougher than high school. Now that we're going to the same city for college, can you? His words came slower than usual, his eyes shining brightly. He looked up, looked down, looked everywhere except at me. Can you give me a chance? Every day. I'll save you the window seat in the library. I'll study every professional textbook with you. I want to buy a bicycle. Take you to class every day. Of course. We don't have to study. We can do whatever you want. I'll be there with you. I watched his rambling and couldn't help but curve my eyes in a smile. Okay. I know you've been through so much hurt before. If you don't want to give me a chance, it's fine. Zach suddenly froze, blinking as if only just realizing. His voice carried irrepressible joy. I knew it. No, I didn't expect you to agree so fast. I had prepared so many more things to say. I chuckled. Go on then. I'll listen. Take your time. Zach's beautiful eyes shone brighter than ever. In short, one sentence, your future library seat is mine.